Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is your one and only Alpha. So for today, I'd like to share with you guys something really special. 3 years ago, I shared my story to the rest of the world, to where I've actually fully expressed myself on what has gone through, what kind of experience I had. It's something that I never thought I would do ever in my life. I've actually done a TED Talk. I'd like to be able to share it with each and every one of you. This is my first, this is my first time watching myself doing a TED Talk once again. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewatch it again, and I'm just going to tell you exactly what were the process and what were my thoughts at that time. And let's all relive that moment, okay?
If there is one thing I learned from Disney princess stories, that is to become a damsel in distress. What goes through your mind when we think of a Disney princess? I used to think princesses living magical moments and in the end, being saved by a handsome prince. But what do we notice when we look at each story? They actually spend their time cleaning, cooking, singing, and dancing. Each story has wonderful and magical moments, but what about domestication, objectification, and abuse? Snow White lives with the 7 dwarves, where she had to clean their house, cook their meals, and do all the household chores. She was domesticated before being saved by her prince. Or what about Little Mermaid Ariel?
Just to let you know, before I've actually set foot on that red dot in the middle, behind that stage is a group of participants who are actually calming their nerves. We're doing all these kinds of like tapping exercise just to calm us. There's also another person who's actually helping us to breathe, because it's very intimidating to know that you're going to be setting foot on that red dot in front of hundreds of people around you and just telling a story and sharing your ideas with the rest of the world. And it's really, really frightening. It's really, it's nerve-wracking, to tell you honestly. It's been, I believe it's close to a year before I've actually sat on that red dot onto the stage. And it's a whole year process to where I've actually retold my story over and over again and hearing myself. This is my healing process. My story needs to be told in order for me to be healed, because this story is something that I haven't shared to many people. And at that particular moment, I remember telling to my mind, this is it. Without holding anything back, you're about to share your story to the rest of the world.
She fell in love with a young man, sold her soul to a witch in exchange for a pair of legs. She's willing to do anything just to get what she wanted, and that is to be the object of his desire. I grew up in the Philippines as a child. Both of my parents were busy traveling for work. Oftentimes, we're left with nannies or other family members. Not having my parents around me made me feel alone and empty. Reading books and watching princess movies.
When you're exposing your vulnerability, how you feel empty and alone growing up, or just like you kind of feel the presence of your parent around growing up, whenever I think about that, you feel like sad somehow. And it shows on my voice right there. It's a little trembly, it's like very touchy, it's a little emotional. It's because for that particular moment, it feels like I'm still feeling that emptiness, that void when I was growing up.
I dreamed I would meet a Prince Charming, get married, and live happily ever after. In 2000, I came to Canada as an international student. I got involved in the community
because I got nervous. I thought I was going to forget my line.
Through a youth group in the community, I met a young man. We started as friends and then progressed into a relationship. It was great. I thought I had met my Prince Charming, and marrying him seems to be the right thing to do, because that's how every princess story goes. Every princess would meet a young prince, get married, and live happily ever after, right? So at the age of 23, my dream partly came true. I was in love, and I got married. It was great at the beginning. We were both young, full of hopes and dreams. My husband was working, we had our own place. Life looked promising. I was living my own princess story, or so I thought. When I was 6 months pregnant with our daughter, my husband started taking drugs. He started with recreational drugs and turned into hard drugs after. I became worried, but hoped that once our daughter was born, he would sober up and would take care of us. Not at all. He continued his drug use. His moods became unpredictable, and he wasn't able to hold down jobs. I had to take 2 jobs just to make ends meet, take care of our daughter, as well as the household chores. He sustained his addiction by selling some of his belongings and stealing money from me. He became emotionally and physically abusive. He would force me to have sex with him. I was terrified, and I cried each time it happened. I felt powerless and hopeless, and I was so afraid to express how I felt. But in spite of it all, I would put on a happy face and pretend things were okay. But deep down inside, I wept. I
It's not easy to
held
talk
on to
about
the
that,
idea
honestly.
that I would have a
Even me
happily
hearing
ever
this
after.
right now, I
Because in
still
Beauty and the
feel
Beast, Bella was terrified of the beast, but she chose to live
like
with
a
him
little
in hopes
intimidated.
for a better life.
It's so
She
unreal,
helped
but
him
at the
change his
same time,
character, and in the end, they live happily
it's
ever
not
after.
something that you would just like openly talk about.
Not in my story. I felt mine
I
was
think that I
Loki's.
was about to cry and I get
Until
emotional at that
one day,
point.
my mother-in-law had asked him to go to Calgary for a fresh start. Maybe being away from his family would give him a better perspective in life. I hope so too. The proposed plan is that once he's fully settled, my daughter and I would follow. But is that what I wanted? Not at all. But I wouldn't want to be considered a failure and feared that I would not be a good wife. Because in my culture, wives are supposed to submit to their husband, love them no matter what, and take care of the family. And unfortunately, often to a point where women are subjected to domestication, objectification, and abuse. So the turning point for me was when my husband left for Calgary. This moment has given me a sense of relief for the first time in 4 years. I no longer had to worry about him getting high or what mood he'll be in when I come home. Most importantly, I didn't have to worry about my daughter's safety under his care. He didn't live with us anymore. He couldn't touch me. He's far away. So as days went by, I started to reconnect with myself again. I could now focus on my daughter and myself. I even managed to do the things that I used to love, like reading. And then my fantasy about living a fairy tale story began to fade. I thought to myself, if my story is not going to have a happily ever after, I needed to rewrite it. So I started to look for answers elsewhere other than fairy tales. My consciousness was awakened by my desire to live the life I deserve. And I was motivated to start making changes. Because what matters to me more than anything was the well-being of my daughter. I wanted to be a role model for my daughter. And I don't want her to grow up following in my footsteps of abuse and misery. So the first thing I did was end the relationship and file for divorce. I was judged by people around me. I was criticized and
Sure.
called names.
Even
But
until
somehow,
now.
I didn't care as much anymore. I needed to go forward
I'm still the bad
and not
person
look
who
back,
made that
even if
call.
it meant burning
I don't
bridges.
care. I really don't care.
So I only maintained relationship with friends and families who supported me the most.
Yes.
Went back to school, changed jobs, and moved to a new place. It wasn't easy being a single parent,
Yes.
but it's all worth it.
That was a very,
I am
very
now
challenging
happy
moment
and
in my
fulfilled.
life. Going to school, raising
a
a
great
daughter on
job.
my own.
My daughter is all grown up and happy. I've also attracted the right man in my life,
Yes.
someone who loves
That
and
is so
respects me, and
I'm
most
blessed.
importantly,
Truly am
supports my
blessed.
dream about helping others.
Even
My
until to
newfound
this date, he
energy
still supports me with
has
all of
allowed me
my
to attract supportive
dreams and
people in my
aspirations.
life,
I'm forever
and
thankful for
things
that.
became better. I didn't let my past ruin me, but instead, I've used my strength and courage to define my future. I am not a Disney princess. I am not a damsel in distress. I don't need a prince to save me because I can save myself. My journey has strengthened my purpose in life about helping others. I now help women in my community who are going through the same struggles. If I can rewrite my story, they can too.
Yes.
Embracing my self-worth has given me the power to choose and decide for my own happiness, the strength and courage to set boundaries, and most importantly, the lesson of learning how to be a role model for my daughter by creating my own happily ever after. Thank you.
I still have this feeling, I still feel overwhelmed out of that experience, and hearing myself talk about that, and I'm so far off from where I was back then, and another milestone that I achieve right now, and up to this date I'm doing something that is I've continually dedicated myself to do, and that is about empowering women and providing that inspiration and courage to a lot of people out there, especially women who has gone through the same struggles that I have. And if I could resonate that process with what's going on inside me, aside from the context, aside from the whole technicality and stuff like that, was actually a form of liberation, was actually a form of empowerment that's happening inside me at that moment. It feels like it's so vague and so unclear at that time, but I've actually allowed myself, just go with it. You know, it might be, you might feel like it's really stressful, you might feel like it's a lot of work, but just go with it. And I've actually allowed myself to do so. And right now, watching myself, I've actually talked about that. I still feel emotional about my story, but at the same time, I'm so proud that I've actually shared my story to hundreds of people out there. And because of that, because the wonder people of TED Talk, TEDx Women Montreal, I have actually developed more courage about myself, more courage about helping more women out there, because I have met wonderful women who have actually done the same thing, who have actually spoken about their truth, about their mission, and about what is it like about helping other women. It's very, very uplifting to be surrounded by such wonderful, high-esteemed women whose only mission in life is to be in the service of others and making a difference. And that we should never, never be afraid of sharing our story, because our story can be a source of inspiration, empowerment, and courage to a lot of people out there. I want to do more. And that's why here I am right now, doing what I love to do, and that is sharing a message to a lot of people. I hope that a lot of you guys would actually find the courage to find your voice and to be able to stand up for yourself and recreate and write your own happily ever after, because you all deserve it. Okay? Do not forget to like and subscribe, and provide me some comments if you want me to cover any topics or anything else that you'd like for me to cover. Until then, bye for now.